There's three things mentioned over here, but they're actually just two. One is money supply, and the other is interest rate. Now, as we talked about in the previous learning module, that when your economy is going through peaks and troughs, right, what you could do is use expansionary policies or contractionary policies, whether they are fiscal or monetary in nature, to kind of smooth these business cycles, right? So when you are at this peak stage, you can use a contractionary policy. When you are at this trough stage, you could use an expansionary policy to push the economy back up, right? Now, in terms of fiscal policy, you already know that in an expansionary policy, we reduce the taxes and we increase the government spending. But what do you do in the monetary policy? Well, you increase the money supply and you reduce the interest rate. You make money cheap and available plenty. So you increase the money supply and you reduce the interest rate so that people who've already borrowed from banks and companies which have already borrowed from banks immediately get relief on their interest rate. So their interest cost goes down, and instead of going into a recession, your economy starts to turn around. How does the central bank increase the money supply? We will talk about it in terms of open market operations and reserve requirements. So let me now jump into that and tell you what are open market operations and what are reserve requirements and how that increases the money supply. Then we will move on to interest rates, that how the central bank, by adjusting the refinancing rates, can either reduce the interest rate or increase it. But for the time being, let's talk about how we can increase, or how the central bank can increase the money supply in an economy. So first, open market operations. So there are some banks which are primary dealers. In every economy, in every country, some big banks are designated primary dealers, and the central bank can give money to them and buy from them bonds which initially had been sold. So let's say this is a primary dealer, Bank of America, and this is the Federal Reserve, and this Federal Reserve is, of course, the bank of the US government, the government's bank. So the Federal Reserve had previously sold to Bank of America some bonds, right? Previously. So Bank of America has these bonds with it, on which it is earning interest, which the Federal Reserve is paying on behalf of the US government to Bank of America, and Bank of America is then paying that interest to the depositors. So initially, obviously, when the US government had sold these bonds, Bank of America had paid for these bonds in dollars using the depositors' money, and the Federal Reserve had given that money to the US government. That is how the government national debt has been accumulated of 30 trillion, which we talked about in the previous learning module. Anyways, so this is the current situation. And then if the central bank wants to increase the money supply, what they will do is they will give back the money. They will take back the bonds. And it is also possible that the US government doesn't have money to give to buy back these bonds. So the Federal Reserve might not give those bonds back to the government. They might just keep them with itself. And this money they can print. So they can just print money and give that to Bank of America and take the bonds back from the Bank of America. So the Bank of America doesn't have the bonds anymore. The Federal Reserve has them, and it has printed this money and given it to the Bank of America. The Bank of America obviously is now having a lot of cash. So then it will be looking for people to give loans to, right? Looking for companies and individuals. So companies and individuals will then obviously get loans, and then the other thing which the Federal Reserve will be doing in parallel to increasing the money supply is reducing the interest rate. So these people and these companies will be getting loans at a cheap interest rate, and that obviously is going to help with the turning around of the economy if it is going in a recession. So this is open market operations that the government can, through the central bank, of course, the central bank can print money and buy back the bonds, the government bonds from commercial bank. The second thing which they can do to increase money supply, and let's say this is Bank of America, and there is something known as a reserve ratio. So as you know, Bank of America is a commercial bank, which means it gets deposits and it gives loans. Now let's say it has gotten deposits of $100 billion, right? And there is something known as the reserve ratio. Now what that means is that Bank of America or any bank in the United States cannot give out all the money which they have gotten in deposits as loans. They have to keep a certain reserve, and they have to deposit this reserve with the central bank. So if the central bank increases this reserve ratio, that means, let's say initially this reserve ratio is 10%. So only 90 billion can be given out as loans. Now if the central bank increases this reserve ratios to, let's say, 15%, right? 15%, then this money supply will go down. If it reduces that reserve ratio, let's say if it reduces that reserve ratio to 8%, that means 92% of the deposit, or from 100 billion, 92 billion can be given in loans. So the money supply will increase. So they can increase the money supply by, number one, which we discussed in the previous slide, is buying back the bonds and just printing dollars and giving to them. And at the same time, they can even reduce the reserve ratio and encourage the banks to give out more loans. So these 2 points, open market operations and reserve requirements, are linked for increasing the money supply. So when we talked about increasing money supply, I said these 2 points are linked for increasing money supply. They can conduct open market operations, buy back the bonds and give cash to the banks, and also reduce their reserve requirements so that they give out more loans. And they could reduce the interest rate, which we will talk about in point number 3, which is the refinancing point, to help an economy recover back to full employment, which is obviously one of their objectives. Now, let's step back or step forward. Either way, I want you to focus on this stage when the economy starts to overheat, right? And things become expensive, inflation starts going up, and we need to have an opposite policy where we need to reduce money supply and we need to increase interest rate. How is that going to help us control inflation? We are going for a contractionary monetary policy where we are going to reduce money supply and increase interest rate. And you are obviously easily going to be able to hopefully understand how to reduce money supply. And let's go through it. Well, they were printing money, giving them dollars and buying the bonds. Now they will take the money and give them the bonds back. So obviously, banks will not be able to give out loans. Rather, they'll start asking for the loans back. And they could increase the reserve ratio, which means then maybe they could take it to 15%, which means only 85% of the money banks will be able to go and give out as loans. So the amount will go down and the banks will be forced to ask some of the loans back. So this will reduce the money supply. But what is more important is how they can increase the interest rate and make it expensive for individuals and companies to buy things and do business. And how is that eventually going to control that rising inflation is what we will discuss in the next slides after we complete the discussion about what are the different types of interest rates, that how By increasing the interest rate, the inflation gets controlled. But first, let me tell you what are the different types of interest rates. The main one, which is called the policy rate or the official policy rate or the official interest rate or the discount rate, but mainly we call it the policy rate, is the one which the Federal Reserve announces that they are either changing in terms of increasing or decreasing or keeping the same, and that is from the Federal Open Market Committee discussions. And these minutes are very important, practically speaking. When you get to that stage, of course, you're going to be combing through them with a fine-tooth comb. Second is repo rates. Now, what is repo? Repo is short for repurchase. And these repurchase agreements, what happens is that sometimes a bank is in need of money. So commercial bank borrows from the central bank. And the way it does is that the central bank sells a security to the commercial bank where there is a commitment to repurchase it after a number of days. So the security goes from the central bank to the commercial bank, right? Let's say Bank of America. And the cash comes from Bank of America to central bank, and then later it goes back with a higher amount to Bank of America, and then the security comes back. And it could be vice versa as well. It could work in both directions. Depends on who has excess liquidity and who wants to give the deposit to who. But the important thing over here is that this is not a loan which is unsecured. This is a secured loan, because if one party is giving money to the other party, they are getting a bond or a security against it. So this repo rates is a secured loan. Base rates, on the other hand, are also banks giving each other loans, or central bank giving a loan to another bank, or another bank giving a loan or investing with the central bank. But this is without any kind of security. These are unsecured, and there are various names that we use from economy to economy, because this is usually for banks giving each other loans. In London, we call it the London Interbank Offer Rate. In the Middle East, for example, if you talk about economy like the United Arab Emirates, where Abu Dhabi and Dubai are the big cities, it is called the Emirates Interbank Offer Rate, right? In the US, it has a special name, and that is the Federal Funds Rate. So this is, of course, specific to the US. And what happens if the Federal Reserve increases the policy rate? Well, of course, the whole loan system is going to come down, right? The amount of lending will go down because, number one, people will feel it's very expensive, right? And the whole quantity of money will decrease and the money supply will come down. And to understand this whole transmission mechanism, we've got a very interesting exhibit from the curriculum, which I am going to explain to you in detail. So let's get into it and understand how it affects the entire economy. This is from your curriculum, and we're going to understand it in three different parts, right? First, what we're going to do is we're going to take this official rate and we will see how it impacts market rates, asset prices, expectations and confidence, and exchange rate. Then we will see that how does that affect the domestic demand and the net external demand. And then we will move on to understanding how it impacts total demand, and then how that total demand, which is the local and the international one, influence your inflation. So how does increasing the interest rate reduce inflation? And we will do it in a very, very structured step-by-step manner. So let's get started. First, as discussed, we're going to break this down into three parts. The first part is going to be till here, that how does increasing the official rate impact the market rate, asset prices, expectations and confidence, and exchange rate. Then how does that impact your local demand and international demand. Then in the second part we will see that how it impacts your total demand and then the inflationary pressures, and then in the last part we will see how it impacts your inflation. But step by step, let us first focus on these four: one, two, three, four, which is your market rates, asset prices, expectations and confidence, and exchange rate. So these are the four interrelated channels that we're going to be discussing, starting with market rates. So when you increase the official rate, what are the market rates that are going to get impacted? Of course, your repo rate, your interbank offer rate, your federal funds rate, all of these will go up. The short term lending, the long term lending, everything is going to go up. The banks will start asking for higher rates on their mortgages and loans which they have given to individuals and companies, right? Which means they will start feeling a pinch. The individual customers who've taken personal loans and home mortgages, companies that have taken business loans are going to start feeling a pinch, and they will slow their buying, right? They will slow their spending. So it is going to negatively impact your domestic demand. Also, in terms of asset prices, what will happen is that you must remember from your quantitative methods that the value, the present value, is equal to the future value discounted back by the interest rate, right? And if this R is going to go up, this whole present value is going to come down because the future value is going to be discounted with a bigger denominator. So the present value of these future cash flows will come down. And that is how assets, financial assets such as stocks and bonds, so equities are of course stocks, and they have a certain future cash flow like dividend payments, and bonds have your coupon payments. So when interest rate goes up, when R goes up, right, when R goes up, the present value of these future cash flows comes down, which means the security prices come down. And when security prices come down, people feel like they're losing their wealth. So they again stop spending so much. And trust me, nobody understands this more than me, being a stock market investor for years, that whenever the market is going up, I just feel richer and I spend more. And when the market is down, well, I don't spend that much. So it's a psychological thing that happens, and it's called the wealth effect. But it definitely impacts the local domestic demand. Next, what happens with the... So we're talking about four interrelated channels. We've already covered market rates and asset prices. Now let's talk about expectations and confidence. When the interest rates start going up, what happens is that people realize that we are at this stage of the economy, that we are overheating, and the central bank has decided that the current stage of the economy is above full employment. We are overheating and we need to slow the economy down and bring it back to full employment, which means that they are going to slow down business. Employment is going to go down, profitability is going to go down, right? Unemployment is going to increase because the government has decided that they need to slow the growth in the economy, slow down inflation, which means if you are a business, then you're going to definitely be looking at slowing down your investments and kind of just reducing whatever business expansion you were planning on doing, right? And then the fourth one, which is your exchange rate, of course. Now, this is a complicated one. And I'm not going to spend too much time right now to explain to you why this is so complicated, because even at CFA level 3, it's a complicated discussion, which is your capital market expectations learning module. Why it's so complicated is because it depends on country to country. Not every country is the United States of America, which has the US dollar as the local currency. So if I talk about it from the US perspective, and if your interest rate, the official rate, is going up, now people will rush to the US and invest in the US. The demand for the dollar will go up. Why? Because the dollar is a very strong currency. So if the US is increasing its interest rate, that means I could, let's say if I'm in the UK or if I'm in Europe, I could sell my pounds or my euros, convert it to dollars, and earn a higher interest rate. If I'm earning, let's say, 3% in England, then why would I want to earn 3% in England when I can earn, let's say, 4% in the US and have my money in dollars? Right? So therefore, for a country like the US, when they increase the interest rate, the demand for their currency goes up. But this is not true for smaller countries. A country like Zimbabwe could increase their interest rate as much as they want. I don't think anybody is going to sell their pounds and invest in Zimbabwe at the higher rate. I'm not saying anything against about Zimbabwe. I'm just giving a comparison between the US dollar and the Zimbabwe dollar, that increasing of interest rate is not going to appreciate the Zimbabwe dollar, but it is definitely going to appreciate the US dollar. People will sell pounds and people will even sell gold, and they do, to invest in the dollar if it offers a decent interest rate. So now what does that have to do with demand? So when the dollar goes up, and let's say you are buying American goods, in the UK you are buying American goods, such as Apple phones. Apple phones come from the US to the UK. So iPhones and MacBooks and all this. So if the dollar becomes strong, because the demand for the dollar is going up because it is paying a higher interest rate, then the US products also become expensive for people living in the UK, for people living in Europe, for people living in the rest of the world. Because the dollar becomes strong, then American goods become more expensive, and the international demand for American goods goes down, right? The external demand goes down. And therefore, your total demand within the economy for US goods is going to go down locally and internationally. So far, we've been talking about how all of this is basically going to impact, all four of these are going to impact your domestic demand and net external demand. And let's discuss this again with respect to how it impacts your individuals and households, why they stop taking loans, why they reduce spending, and why they stop consuming so much. They will postpone that, they will delay their consumption. If I was going to go for a family dinner now, I might go for it next year, right? Because my interest payment has gone up. So I'm not saving that much from my paycheck to take my family. Or let's say I was planning to go to the Swiss Alps for a vacation, but I'm not going to go this year because I've not been able to save anything because my interest payment, my mortgage payment has gone up, right? And then obviously if the consumption is postponed, delayed, right, then what will happen is your domestic demand is going to go down, or international demand is also going to go down. Swiss Alps is not a good example. Let's say I was going to go to Disneyland in the US. I live in the US and I was going to go to Disneyland in the US, but I'm not able to do that because my mortgage payment has gone up and I don't have enough saving left. And I will not even take a new loan because it's just so expensive. The higher rates are too scary. I'm not going to borrow more, right? And my income which is available for spending, called disposable income, will go down. Right. What else happens? The asset prices which are falling affects financial wealth. Remember I was talking about the wealth effect? That when your investments go down, you get sad. And when you get sad and your mortgage is going up, you get even more sad. So then you might even consider selling your house, which means even if you don't sell your house, other people will sell their house and the house prices go down. That makes you even more sad. So overall, your domestic demand is really going to take a hit, right? And the mortgages obviously are not going to be paid back. So then the banks might have to foreclose, and then the housing market can come down as well. And this is all very scary. The Federal Reserve has to be very, very careful with monetary policy. And there's something I learned in CFA level 3, teaching CFA level 3, is that monetary policy is like a string. It's very easy to pull it. So when your economy is overheating, it's very easy to pull it. But when you are down, and you kind of let go, you have an expansionary monetary policy, but pushing the string is not going to do much. It's easy to pull something with a string, but if you let the string go, it's really hard to get the economy going back up. So the Federal Reserve has to be very, very careful in increasing interest rates, because you don't want to break the back of the economy. And what you might be hearing in the news these days a lot is something called a hard landing. So the Federal Reserve doesn't want a hard landing. What they want is something called a soft landing, and that is what they're trying for these days. But they have increased the interest rates faster and most sharply than they ever have in the history of the United States in these past few months. And as of now, at the moment I'm making this video, we are in March 2023, and I'm making it for your upcoming exams for 2024. And the US has been increasing interest rates all these past 6 months. Fastest ever rise in interest rates. And there has been collapse of Silicon Valley Bank recently. So, I mean, you know this effect that it is having. And inflation has been going down. So it was at 9%, then it came down to 8, and then 7 and 6. And why? Because obviously domestic demand is going down, and then people will stop buying things, then definitely the inflation is going to keep coming down. Right. And as I said, I gave you the example of Apple, that even international demand of your goods goes down, because if the dollar becomes strong, then they become the local US goods become expensive relative to foreign goods, and then maybe people in the rest of the world will buy Samsung phones instead of buying Apple phones. So the demand for Apple comes down. We've covered this whole part, that what is the impact of official rate going up, and through market rates, asset prices, expectations, confidence, and exchange rate, does your domestic demand go down, and does your net external demand go down? So second is, so because we said we were going to break down in 3 parts. So the first one we've already understood very clearly, that how a bank, the central bank, may decide to increase the policy rate and how that affects your demand locally and internationally. And then obviously there's going to be an impact on the total demand, the aggregate demand, that the lower confidence is going to lead to lower spending, which obviously will then lead to a lower demand from your local domestic demand, and as well as from your net external demand, and then eventually the total aggregate demand comes down. And then lastly, the impact on inflation, that when people are going to have a weaker demand for goods and services, naturally the prices that they will be willing to pay for those goods and services will go down. So that is it for this video. We're going to take up monetary policy objectives in the next one.